3 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the post-game show along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being on board with us. Plenty to get to on today's program. Excited to have the head football coach of the Gamecocks back on in just a few minutes' time. Shane Beamer will be with us. Got to see Coach a little while ago down at Pro Day, which has wrapped up. A lot of Gamecocks participating. I think the biggest names certainly are Spencer Rattler and Xavier Leggett. A lot of chatter around X. Or Zay, as the team likes to call him. Found that out today. Better to call him Zay than X. But I'll let you know what some people were saying about him. Had a great conversation as well with Dowell Loggins and Clayton White. We'll recap some of those things for you. And, again, Shane will be with us coming up here in about 15 minutes' time. We'll get our regular Tuesday visit from our good friend Derek Scott, the voice of the Gamecocks, like the team, on his way up to Nashville to get ready for the SEC men's basketball tournament. South Carolina will take the floor Thursday afternoon against the winner of tomorrow's game between Vanderbilt and Arkansas. And the winner of that game on Thursday, which, again, around here, I'll just go ahead and say we hope is South Carolina, will take on Auburn. So that's what it's looking like this week. Gamecocks are in. You're playing for seeding at this point. Again, I know there's still, I guess, Elijah, a level of I don't know if dejection is too strong, but finishing 13-5 and had, because you and I kept talking for a while, and not just you and I, many people around the conference. Hey, 12-6 should probably get you a top four. And then you had Tennessee go 14-4, and then three schools behind them go 13-5, and Carolina lost out again. You can't fit 5 into 4, at least not well.
No,
and in a tournament they don't even let you.
Nope, got a tiebreaker somewhere.
I don't know if dejection is too strong or not, but I get it. But you just, again, if you didn't hear us yesterday, there was a collective 4-way tiebreaker that the SEC had to use in order to seed these teams, and Carolina was on the outside looking in.
Sometimes you draw the short straw. Yeah. You're the odd man out. They controlled what they can control for the most part.
They did, and that's just it. And I do think, and Elijah, this is his wheelhouse, as I like to say, has been looking at the net, looking at the bracketology, and South Carolina got a nice, well, listen, any quad 1 win. Quad 1 and quad 2 wins are good, but you got a solid quad 1 win on Saturday. So that does indeed pad your resume. And if you can find a way to get a couple of things done this weekend, I don't know. I feel like maybe the very best South Carolina could do if they were to, say, get to Saturday might be a 4 seed, but I kind of feel like that's probably a stretch with their net ranking. I feel like 5 is sort of the... Yeah. 5-6 is kind of where they are.
And if you look at the other teams that are projected 4s, I mean, there might be some vulnerability with Kansas because they're going to play their conference tournament without their 2 best players, and Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. However, they have 7 quad 1 wins. I think if you're going to leapfrog into a 4 seed, you're probably going to have to get to the SEC championship in order to do that, or beat Auburn. Auburn's a projected 4 right now.
Right. Your
resume compared to Auburn, honestly, there's not a ton of difference between the two. Auburn, I mean, it took them until, pretty late in January for them to be able to get their first quad 1 win. They only have 1 quad 1 win. They're 10-7 in the first 2 quadrants combined, but 1-7 in the quad 1. If you avenge that loss on Friday, assuming you're able to get past Arkansas Vanderbilt, which I think is a pretty safe assumption, the EBPI likes your chances here in terms of getting to the Friday game against Auburn. But if you can take down Auburn, then there's a case to be made that you deserve the 4 seed instead of Auburn, despite Auburn being 6th in net. If we were talking about just raw resume, wins over bubble, all the KPI. I mean, you're a lot more comparable than maybe what the net or Ken Palm's rankings have them, or their ratings either. But it'd be hard. You'd have to do something like that to be able to get into the 4 spot, just because they, for the most part, the first 4 seeds in most of these brackets feel relatively solidified. Alabama might hurt their case. They're a 4 according to Lenardi. They could hurt themselves, but Illinois is a 4. I think Illinois can go 1 and done and still be fine. But there's a chance, if you get to the SEC championship game, I think you could see yourself becoming a 4. But it does feel like it's destiny for them to end up playing a 12 seed here in about a week and a couple days, which I know scares you a ton, especially if I told you who Jerry Palm hasn't projected to play against.
Go ahead and tell me.
Richmond.
Oh, no.
Jerry Palm has South Carolina as a 5, taking on 12-seeded Atlantic 10 qualifier Richmond Spiders. I knew you'd love that.
Yeah, it brings back the nightmares.
Coppin State not expected to play in the NCAA tournament, so I think you're good on that one. But Richmond, A10 champs regular season, really good chance they win the tournament. And even if they don't win the tournament, they are a decent at-large.
Good basketball team, man.
Chris Mooney's a really good coach. I don't think he's going to be there much longer.
No, I agree with you.
That's scary.
That's that's the I say that with a little tongue-in-cheek situation going, but not only a little. Because
I think there's a lot.
I mean, we talk about it. You know, one of the interesting things for us around here is, I mean, I say we, like the collective American sports community loves this tournament. Mm-hmm. This local fan base does not, you know, we talk about it every year. We do shows from various places, and we have a lot of fun with our brackets, and we've had bracket challenges in the past. But let's just be honest and call it what it is. The Gamecocks and to a lesser extent, you know, the Clemson Tigers are not regular participants in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. And so I will say that over the years, we've grown to look at this tournament almost from a nice third-party observation point of view. Rarely is there emotion attached to the tournament for fans in Columbia and around the state of South Carolina. So that 5-12 game becomes one where you're like, which 12 you picking?
Yep.
You know, and how many you picking this year? I don't know that I've ever gone into it. I can't remember, but have I ever? Maybe I have for yucks. Because I only make one. I'm not one of these guys that'll fill like 10 brackets.
I feel like that's cheating.
Yeah, you pick one.
Stick to it.
But there's probably, I don't know that I've ever picked 4 12s to advance, but I'm certain there's a few years where I picked 3, you know, and they're not all, I mean, and there's a couple years when 3 have made it, I think, but not that I necessarily got them all right. But it's like, if you don't pick at least 2 12s, you feel like you're doing your bracket wrong. If you just want to go, there's places to go chalk, you know? 3s, 4s, maybe even the 6s, you know, but it's like the 12, man, there's just something mystical about the 12 playing the 5.
And it's because like a lot of maybe your highest performing auto qualifiers that wouldn't have been at larges are usually the ones that end up being the 12. You know, like if Indiana State were to have won their conference tournament, it would be an auto bid instead of Drake. Like Indiana State would be one of those 12s. And you know who I wouldn't want to play? Indiana State, man. I mean, one of the first.
I don't think I want to play Drake right now. Don't they have like 29 wins?
Yeah. Oh, and a guy who can score 30 a game. Yeah, absolutely. Who's also the coach's kid.
I don't want any part of Drake.
No. I want zero part of Drake or anybody, any champion of the Missouri Valley. I don't want any part of. But I remember, you know, my first year covering college basketball, Middle Tennessee State, go Blue Raiders, 12 seed. They were a Vegas favorite over 5-seeded Minnesota. 12 seed in the tournament, playing a 5 seed. They were like a 2.5-point favorite against Minnesota. But because they came from Conference USA, they were a little underseeded because nobody wanted to schedule them in the regular season outside of Vanderbilt, who did so out of obligation because they're right down the road. And they beat Vanderbilt by like 30 that year. And they were Vegas favorites against Minnesota. Like, the 12-5 is almost as much of a toss-up in some instances as an 8-9.
Yeah.
That can be a hairy situation.
Yeah, no, it can. But, you know, look, so we know South Carolina's having a good year, and let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But we'll get into some of these projections, where things stand with the net rankings and things like that. You know, really Thursday's game probably doesn't help you very much. You need to get to Friday and play a good Auburn team for it. And remember, these are neutral court games, so a net ranking of 50 or better becomes a quad 1 win, and I don't know that Arkansas or Vandy are qualifying for that right now. I haven't looked this right. No, Vandy doesn't.
Vandy's outside the top 200. So there is, even if you played Vanderbilt at home, that is only about a quad 4 win.
And what's Arkansas right now?
Oh man, let me double check that because Arkansas
probably around 100.
In this, so Vanderbilt like started off pretty low in net. You have to really free fall. Arkansas is 108.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Before we talk to Coach Beamer, speaking of coaches, do want to congratulate Lamont Paris. He has been named the AP Southeastern Conference Coach of the Year. This is a vote taken by beat writers all across the conference. 14 reporters who covered the SEC vote for this. I don't think it was unanimous. I think Rick Barnes did get a vote at least, but I think Lamont was probably more than anything a runaway winner for this one. Dalton Connect, by the way, was the player of the year. Yeah, and he was unanimous. He was also the newcomer of the year, though that one was not unanimous. But Dalton was, I just the Sears kid at Bama would have been the only one that I would have for player of the year.
Janai Broom from Auburn, maybe until the last 2 or 3 games, I guess, of the season when really he when Dalton really pulled away from the field. I think you maybe could say there's a 3-player race there, but I don't know. Newcomer of the year. I don't know how Dalton Connect would be unanimous player of the year, but not unanimous newcomer of the year. Unless you're just like, I have a staunch rule to myself that I don't vote for a player more than once for different awards.
Well, or maybe because he's older and you want to, somebody out there voted for a freshman instead of a newcomer. Now that we have so many transfers, maybe somebody's just trying to differentiate. I don't know. I won't speak for them, but congratulations to Lamont, who does become, by the way, the first ever AP SEC Coach of the Year.
How about that?
Yeah. You and I were looking at Eddie Fogler tied for Coach of the Year back in the 97 season when Carolina won the league. But no one has been the AP Coach of the Year. So congratulations to Lamont Paris, and we'll see where he lands for National Coach of the Year in the coming days. All right, quick timeout. On the other side of the break, the head football coach of the Gamecocks joins us live. Shane Beamer after Pro Day. We'll talk about that. Look ahead to spring ball and more with Coach as the postgame show continues.
Before we talk to Coach Shane Beamer, I want to tell you about my friends at Underdog Fantasy. Because, guys, the NBA season is here, and there's no easier way to get on the action than Underdog Fantasy and their Pick'em game. Elijah, how do they play the Pick'em game? Well, here's how. Pick 2 to 5 players from at least 2 different teams, select higher or lower on individual stat projections, and if your picks hit, you can win up to 100 times your money. You can take on almost any stat. My favorite is to take individual points plus rebounds plus assists. Almost feels like a cheat code. I've done pretty well with that so far. Underdog is super easy to play, and it's even easier to get started. Just go download the mobile app or go to UnderdogFantasy.com, sign up with promo code 1075, and Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100, plus they'll give you a mystery special pick to use on your first Pick'em entry. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code 1075 to get your first deposit up to $10 or more and up to $100 matched. Must be 18 and older and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Consider your play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
18 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Derek Scott a little bit later on helping us preview Gamecock men's basketball. Again, congratulations to Coach Lamont Paris being named the AP Southeastern Conference Coach of the Year. Carolina gets the winner of Arkansas and Vanderbilt on Thursday afternoon, right around this time. Baseball tonight. Dawn Staley call-in show tonight at 6. So a lot going on, including Pro Day over at the Jerry and Steve Spurrier indoor facility, where earlier I got to bug Shane Beamer once, and unfortunately for him, he has to put up with it for a second time in one day. But we always appreciate the time with the head coach. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Not true. It's a pleasure for me when I get to talk to you twice in one day. So thanks. Great seeing you earlier, and thanks for having me on now.
Nah, you bet. The importance of this day to these kids, we know what, look, this is Southeastern Conference football where a lot of these young men have these dreams. All these players have these dreams, Shane, but we know what it means to a program to put a lot of guys in the league, and Carolina's certainly done that. But more importantly, what's today for the young men that you've just finished coaching?
It's kind of a culmination of what they wanted to get out of their college experience. Whether it be a guy that has been at Carolina since before I got here, like DeCarrion Joyner, who performed today in front of the scouts, or somebody that I've known since high school that transferred in, like Spencer Rattler, or someone like Nick Gargiulo that was at Yale and then just came in for one season. But all those guys participated today, and it was what they wanted when they went to college, to earn a degree and then have the opportunity to go play football at the next level. And those guys have earned their degrees, and now they get the opportunity to perform in front of scouts and have an opportunity to go play football professionally pretty soon. So that's pretty cool, just to be able to watch those guys do that and live out their dreams, and then really just being able to catch up with them. For a lot of those guys, it's the first time I've seen them since November or December. And it was great having them back in the building and being around, and it was fun watching them today.
We got a chance this morning as well to see and speak with Dowell Loggins, and we talked about Spencer Rattler, Xavier Leggett, Trey Knox. He was very high on in terms of the opportunities next month at the draft, Shane. But and look, I'm not. I want to be careful here because I'm not trying to single Spencer out and say he's more important. That's not where I'm going. But we all know that quarterback is the most important position in football, and there's been shows and books written about that maybe it's the most important position in sports. And so when you've got a high-profile guy like Spencer, there is a different light that's going to shine on the program. What was that like for you guys today? What's it been like for him? And how do you view that through the prism of what the quarterback position means to football?
No, there's no question. Regardless of the level you're on, high school, college, NFL, if you don't have a quarterback, it's going to be really, really hard. And Spencer is a proven quarterback. It's going to play on Sundays. And you're exactly right. There was probably a little bit more national media attention, whether it be ESPN or SEC Network or whoever, on our pro day today. That was primarily, obviously, because Leggett had a lot to do with it. Marcellus Dial has, helped himself, but primarily because of the quarterback and Spencer. So it's great from a recruiting standpoint to be able to showcase your program for guys that are, all eyes of the country or on Columbia Day in a lot of ways if you follow pro football because of our pro day. But even going back to when Spencer was the MVP of the Senior Bowl or the Combine last week, you saw a lot of guys that came to South Carolina and bettered themselves. I mentioned a couple of them a minute ago, but, Trey Knox was at the NFL Combine, spent one season with us, and got an opportunity to go up there. And I already mentioned Nick Gargiulo and then what Spencer and Xavier have done. So really happy for those guys. And certainly when you do have a quarterback, it gives your team a chance to be successful. But then, too, there's going to be more eyes on you outside of your program also.
Coach, real quick on Xavier Leggett, too. I mean, he's a lot of people that I've talked to that I trust in terms of draft evaluation and people that are pretty plugged in say he might be closer to the first round than a lot of people think. And a lot of that is because I think NFL teams are falling in love with his work habits and his ability to practice as well as he plays. And that's been one of the main stories for your team last year when talking about Zay, is that he practices harder than almost anybody else in football. But what type of NFL prospect do you think he is, and how has his work ethic really kind of vaulted him into this discussion where he could be a first-round NFL pick?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think there's a few things with Zay. One, his body of work before this season. Like, to me, Zay was going to be drafted before this season on his special teams ability alone. Everybody remembers the kickoff return against Texas A&M in 2022. But in the same game, watch the guy run downfield and make solo tackles on kickoffs for us on our kickoff team, or as a gunner on our punt team. You know, he was a guy, he loves to play, he loves to compete, and he always plays at a high level, high effort-wise. And he was going to get an opportunity in the NFL because of that. But then he puts the season that he had this year on top of that. So now you're skyrocketing up draft boards because, you know, NFL teams are, you know, they always, when they call me, they'll say, hey, you know, we know about him as a receiver. What kind of special teams value does he have? Or we know about so-and-so as a running back. What kind of special teams value does he have? And when you can sit there and say, well, Xavier Legette, you know about him as a receiver, and I think he could start on all four special teams for you and return kicks. And that does nothing but help him. And it is a testament to his hard work. And it's one thing, too, with us. You know, we have NFL personnel at all of our practices. And there's a lot of college teams, they, you know, restrict the NFL when they can come in. It's 1 week out of the season, or it's 1 day per week. We let NFL scouts, GMs, personnel people, they're allowed to come watch our practice during the season every day that we have practice. And so they've been able to see that. When I tell them, hey, he's a great practice player, they already know, because a lot of them have watched us practice and have watched Xavier Legette practice for, you know, his entire career, or his last 3 seasons, whatever it might be. So he was well known in NFL circles because of that, and has done nothing but help himself over the last year also.
Gamecock head football coach Shane Beaver with us here. Pro Day 2024 concluded down at the Spurrier Indoor Facility. Spring ball is next, Coach. I know you didn't want to lose Justin Stepp off the staff or James Coley off the staff. Things happen in life, but you replaced them with 2 guys who left head coaching jobs to join South Carolina football. And in the case of Sean Elliott, rejoined South Carolina football. How A, are they itching to get at it next week? And B, what do you think that says about the program that you've got guys that were willing to make that commitment to you?
Yeah, it's a, testament to what we're doing here, and they believe in it and what we're doing as a program. And there's no question. It's certainly been a transition, but it's been a great transition to get those guys in here. They're great people and great coaches, and they've made us better. Sean's obviously been here a little bit longer than Mike has, but they've both come in and hit the ground running. And I think I told the story in the press conference when we introduced Mike, but, you know, he drove down from Limestone that morning. I think he had an early team meeting and then got in the car and came to Columbia, and he showed up in street clothes, and we had a little, you know, workout going on the field, and he went out there just to watch. And I walked away from him for 5 minutes, and I came back, and he was already out on the field coaching the receivers up in street clothes. And it was very evident to me how much our receivers were hanging on every word that he said, because it was obvious in a short period of time this guy knows what he's talking about and can make our receivers better, and cares about those guys. And Sean's done a great job of coming in and acclimating himself, not just to the tight ends, but our offense and our team. And excited about both those guys and our new Joe DeCamillis and Marquel Blackwell, and eager to get out on the field next week. But there's definitely, it's a neat vibe in our building right now, and those new staff members and have a lot to do with it.
Coach, you got spring practices and spring game coming up here, and I know Jay and I on the show have tossed around ideas before of making like a spring game an actual football game. Just kind of batting around ideas of maybe, you know, instead of an FCS game in the season, having them play in a spring game type setting that could be beneficial for both schools. Where would you stand on a kind of a hypothetical spring game that would be against another actual opponent instead of just yourself, like we've kind of seen here in the last, you know, several decades?
Say less. Jay knows how I feel on that one. I think it'd be fantastic. I think it would be great for our fans. I think it would be great for fans of other schools. Spring practice, there's 15 practices, and it can get a little long. You're not getting ready for a game, and you practice 15 times. It's great being out there on the field, but it can get a little long. But that would be a great way to finish it and kind of give you an idea of where you are as a team too. Because I've said it before, we're the only sport at any level that does not play any kind of preseason scrimmage, preseason game, exhibition game, whatever you want to call it, before you play for real. NFL has preseason games. High schools have scrimmages. College basketball, they get exhibition games and secret scrimmages and whatnot. So, I wish that we could do something as well. I guess baseball gets something. I may be a liar, guys.
No, baseball does. Baseball can if they choose. If they choose, they can.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, gotcha. So I didn't want to be false, say something false, but I just think to give you an idea of kind of where you are as a team, and let our players compete against another team, and whoever that is, whether it's an FCS school, Group of Five school, a team regionally that you don't typically play. I think it'd be great. And I hear some of the pushback that, nowadays with the portal, you'd be trying to recruit other people's team players and all that as well. I mean, I hear that, but it is what it is. But I'd be in favor of it. What if you charge money to it, give money to charity? I don't know. I think there's a lot of positives that could come out of it. And I would certainly be in favor, but unfortunately, I don't hear a lot of people banging the drum for that across college football.
Oh, I'll bang it as much as I can too, Coach. We'll see what we can do. Maybe one day when we're old, we'll do it when we're both retired. We'll see. Appreciate you as always. Look forward to hearing more from you during spring ball, regardless of who you finish off with at the end of it. Have fun.
Yep, you got it. And congrats to Coach Staley and Coach Paris both on being Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And can't wait to follow those guys and girls in the tournament here over the next month.
Good stuff. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
You bet.
That is Gamecock head football coach Shane Beamer. We'll recap a lot of what he had to say as the postgame show continues. Tell you about our good friends at Cato's Power Equipment. The spring, okay, it's not officially upon us just yet, but let's face it, it's South Carolina, so it's already been here for a couple of weeks. And Ben and Matt and the crew want to let you know that coming up here real soon, Cato's has their Mow the Distance sale. It's coming up the last week of the month and into the first week of April. 15% off all steel products, 10% off all parts for those of you who can get those kind of things done, 20% off suggested retail on most commercial mowers. So, again, those of you who are doing this in the private sector, those of you who are out there responsible for this on hospital campuses, school campuses, et cetera, get in now. Save money ahead of the big cutting season at Cato's. And again, if you're just like me and you need a new mower for the backyard, man, they got everything you could possibly need, plus everything else to make things look good all year long. 4012 West Beltline Boulevard, and always online at catospowerequipment.com. Just talking some Gamecock football with Shane Beamer. Appreciate the head coach's time. Spring ball starts next week. Pro Day took place today, and was down there for a little bit. Bill Gunner and I were down there doing our Gamecocks Plus show. I know Tyler and Wes were down there talking to a lot of folks. Got a chance to speak with Dowell Loggins earlier, the Gamecocks OC and quarterback coach, and we talked about both Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette. And I liked your question, Elijah, to Shane about Zay and what he's been doing. And Dowell mentioned, we asked him, like, hey, what's this year been like for him? And we go back to something that I've used a lot to illustrate his season. He had more yards receiving in the North Carolina game up in Charlotte to start the year than he did the entirety of 2022. That's not knocking him. It's just that's the way things went, right?
Perfectly exemplifies his breakout, I would say.
Dowell was very open, and so let me share this as best I can, but, it wasn't happening for Xavier Legette in the ways that maybe a lot of people, including himself, had wanted to. And he had some family, issues. His parents had died, and it's a struggle, man. He had a lot going on in his life. And there was a lot of promise because he did come, and as we've talked about, that mold of player, Bruce Ellington, Pharaoh Cooper, Deebo Samuel. These are guys that spent, of course, Deebo's still doing it, but Bruce and Pharaoh played several years in the league. They made a lot of money. And, Xavier looked like him. I mean, 6'2", 220, 225. I mean, he's got the build, right? And it wasn't happening. And Dowell said, as all of you remember, Dowell was hired while Carolina was prepping for the Gator Bowl against Notre Dame. So he wasn't actually a part of the staff, but he'd been hired, and he could just basically observe at that point. He couldn't coach. And he told us he knew about some of the guys that were doing well, but he said, who is that? And they told him, and he said he pulled him over one day and just said, listen, you can do this. And a few weeks later, when they got back and the game was over, Xavier came and sat down with him, and he said that Zay said, Coach, maybe it's time for me to just, not that I don't like it here. I mean, he's from an hour away in Mullins, a little over an hour. Maybe I just need to transfer, just see. And he's like, give me a spring. Dowell said to him, give me a spring. Let me help you here. Let me tell you what they're looking for at the next level, because I'm telling you, you got it. And it worked out in the spring. And then he went and worked with Deebo out in Arizona with some of the guys that have made Deebo even better. And if I may say so, and I mean this in a great way, wealthier. And it clearly paid off. And, today's the kind of day where they already know a lot about him. So much is already on film, right? You get a chance to meet him a little bit more, see what kind of kid he is. But to my point, Elijah, about your question, now there are people saying, this guy's got tools. This guy has things you don't coach. This guy has things you don't teach. And again, is there a GM out there, a team president, a head coach, an owner even? I don't want to be the guy that passed on him, because if you don't go in the first round, unless you're the Carolina Panthers, somebody passed on you.
Wait, the Panthers don't have a first-round pick?
No, they don't have a first-round pick. They traded it last year.
Oh, they must have gotten a lot in return.
No, well, I mean, they're still terrible.
Well, at least they got to keep their number one.
No, they traded him in part of the deal, too. Yeah.
Okay.
And, by the way, if you didn't hear separately, they just traded their best defensive player, too, for a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick.
Well, good thing they weren't going to franchise tag him.
Yeah, they did, actually, but they let him.
Wow.
Yeah. Here's the thing, by the way.
That makes a ton of sense.
Real fast. We'll talk about this later. Burns didn't want to stay in Charlotte. He was like, please get me the heck out of Dodge. Please, please. I don't want to stay. He didn't want to stay last year. Anyway, we come back around to Legette, but first round pick is now a very real. I'm not a predictor. I don't do these things, but it's a very real possibility.
I mean, so we've had Teron Davenport on our show a couple times, and in terms of evaluation, he's about as real as it gets. And for a guy who played college football and is pretty well connected in the league, especially when it comes to with wide receivers coaches, I trust his evaluation on route running and the wide receiver position more than probably anybody else I could conjure up, right? Like with what Dan Orlovsky is to quarterbacks, I feel like my man TD is with receivers. And back in December, I asked him if he was going to the Senior Bowl because I said, buddy, you got to talk to Xavier Legette. You would love talking to this kid. And he goes, it's a loaded wide receiver class, and while he might not be the best receiver in this class, he's my favorite receiver in this class. And he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if someone goes higher than what, mock draft projections have, because he's got some of the traits that a lot of these coaches fall in love with instantly. And he also mentioned the special teams thing, too.
Right.
Teams are going to drool over that.
Right.
But while you might not see him mocked in first rounds, you might see him more middle, second. I wouldn't be surprised if a team like, I don't know, the Kansas City Chiefs take him late first.
Well, when you and I first started looking at some projections, Xavier Legette, I think, was number 8 or 9 in the ESPN ratings, which is I'm looking at right now. For whatever it may be worth, he's now number 6. So he is moving up the board.
In a loaded receiver class. This might be one of the best ones, I think, or most highly anticipated receiver classes. Let me put it that way.
Marvin Harrison is 1. Malik Neighbors is 2. Rome Odunze is 3. Adonai Mitchell is 4. Brian Thomas, also of LSU, is 5. Xavier Legette is 6. Mitchell's score is 90. Brian Thomas's score is 90. Xavier Legette's score is 89. And right behind Xavier is Ladd McConkey of Georgia at 88. And Zay comes in at 6'1", 221. Thomas, 6'3", 209. Mitchell, 6'2", 205. Legette is built to play at the next level. And as you just said, and we've heard today, he's got things you don't teach. You can make a guy bigger. Mm-hmm. You can make a guy stronger. He also ran a 4.39, had a 40-inch vertical, better than 10 feet on the broad jump. I mean, he's got now. And again, I'm not going to sit here and go, wow, a broad jump, wow, 10 feet, and you never run a straight line in the NFL.
Nope. That's Darius Hayward-Bay.
Right. But or Troy Williamson of South Carolina, who could run like the wind, but you got to catch the football sometimes. And Troy was a fun player, man, but it didn't stick. But he's got things. He's got intangibles, and there's a lot of guys in the NFL that they don't want to pass that up.
Like, my favorite thing about covering Legette this year was the stories told about him in press conferences are all about how he practices.
Yeah.
On at least 3 post-game pressers this year, Shane Beamer alluded to stats on how fast they tracked him in practice. Like, this guy is getting clocked at max speeds, 22, 23 miles an hour in pads in practice. And when it got to the point of the year when the offensive line was at its most banged up, you would say, and when the team was at its most banged up, Dal Loggins would talk about, the difficulty of trying to keep Xavier Legette from practicing too hard because he was so valuable to the team they couldn't lose him. But Xavier Legette heard it, but he doesn't operate that way. I think the quote was, I'm not cheating the work. The guy will never cheat the work a day in his career. So whoever gets this guy is getting someone you don't have to motivate because he motivates himself. And practices the way, winning players practice. That's my favorite part of his career arc was it did reach this point he reached this level of success because you can't get him to go anything less than 100% in these practices. I'm
looking forward to hearing what he does now with teams around the country over the next month or so before the draft in Detroit coming up in April. We'll take a time out here. I want to talk more about that spring game situation on the other side because I will continue to bang that drum. Speaking of games in the spring, not the same, right? But would you like to go to Carolina Vandy Sunday afternoon baseball? It's in about a week and a half. It's not this weekend, but the next. All right, we're going to go ahead and give those away for you. Sunday Vandy tickets. Yeah, that's a pretty good series. Caller 5-803-404-6100. You get a pair. Post-game show. Be right back. All right, welcome back into the post-game show here on a Tuesday afternoon. The voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, coming up a little bit later on. Drive around the SEC. Again, congratulations to Lamont Paris, named the AP SEC Coach of the Year. First time that honor has been given to a Gamecock men's basketball coach. The conference awards came out yesterday as voted on by those within the league. And Dawn and Lamont got those awards. Did we figure out yet? It's the third time that's happened. I've not yet had a chance to do all the research to find out the other two.
I have found a list of all the SEC men's basketball coaches of the year.
Uh-huh.
Finding the women's one is like trying to get inside Fort Knox. This is for some reason really difficult. The SEC's website doesn't have a list, but I think we hypothesized maybe early 2000s. Bruce Pearl and Pat Summitt might have gotten one because his rise was in there while she was winning her last two titles.
Right. And he was painting himself orange. That's
right. Yeah. That was a big national story. That's a guess of mine. So that's got to be one. This would be
that makes sense.
2 of 3.
We'll continue to, as we say in the industry, effort.
We're efforting this type of information.
It's an industry term.
That's right. You don't use this just anywhere.
Right. Industry term. Effort.
Efforting.
I've just thrown out a flash poll for you guys.
It's a family show, Jay.
These
are the flashing. Come on.
On the Twitters. Would you be in favor of college football teams playing a spring exhibition against another school instead of the typical intra-squad scrimmage? Yes. Test yourself? No. Too many risks. Right now, in the very early voting, yes is out front. But we'll keep this one running. I think I just actually hit a day. The reason I brought this up, and I know we talked about it before, but Coach Beamer was just on with us, and he is in favor of this. He's not alone, but he's obviously in a minority. But he's right. I mean, he's just from a factual perspective, at least in terms of any major attention-grabbing sport, it's the only one that doesn't do this. And in my lifetime, I can't recall that it ever has. And I'm old now. But he's right. Spring football, high school football, you got a jamboree. Maybe you only play a quarter, but you played somebody else. The NFL does it not necessarily to get the guys in game shape as much as it might be to cut down the roster, but by game 3, you're going to put your starters in the first half.
They have the dress rehearsal.
Yeah. I mean, you need to click a little bit, and the NFL also has these joint practices where they go pretty hard in scrimmages because we see the daggum fights all the time. It's like hockey now, right? It is. It's like hockey.
Every year you get an inter squad practice that at least it's benches clearing every year.
I think they're there for that. When I say they, I don't mean the teams. I mean like the cameras. It's like, Giants are going to go scrimmage against the Steelers. We see we can make them fight. It's almost like dropping blood in the water with sharks just to see what happens. Again, and he's right. And I know. I get it. It's a physical game. I understand that. The coaches understand it, but I mean, check me if I'm wrong. Is football at the high school level a physical game? Is football at the professional level a physical game? Why can't colleges do it? It's not can't, right? It's won't. And, I mean, is the sense of coaching paranoia so great at the collegiate level relative to the other two that this is what happens? Like, I don't know. I mean, we're going to see a sold-out, friendly, they call them, preseason game, Liverpool and Man U, coming up in August in Columbia. Like, again, college baseball, should they choose, can do fall exhibitions. Shane's right even. Listen, basketball does it. You get one that you can have as a ticketed event, but they let you have one they call a secret scrimmage. He's right. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. It's a behind closed doors one. You can get one more.
The not-so-secret scrimmages because it's always leaked who ends up winning them.
And I think Carolina always seems to play one against Virginia Tech. I don't know.
They played an open scrimmage,
this year
which is counted for records.
I'm here for it for a lot of reasons. And I guess I wish I could be made to understand why the fear or the risk, if you will, let's say it that way, since it's a risk-reward relationship, Elijah, why the risk outweighs the reward in collegiate football relative to high school or the pros.
Well, I mean, in the spring especially, man, like I get, the possible ligament injury that takes somebody out for an entire season, but even some of your minor stuff that could happen in that game, there's months and months until you play your first real game. So I think it's a paranoia thing more than anything else, that a lot of your secrets will get revealed and how your offenses and defenses run.
I guess. I don't know. I guess. At J Phillips 1075 if you want to answer the polls. Some big NFL news to tell you about. Be right back.
But first, I'm going to talk to you about my friends over at Underdog Fantasy. My friends, the NBA season is very much underway and winding down its regular season, and there is a fantasy game on Underdog Fantasy called their Pick'em game that I've really enjoyed playing. You pick 2 to 5 players from at least 2 different teams, select higher or lower on those players' stats, and if your picks hit, you can win up to 100 times your money. I've really enjoyed taking the points, rebounds, and assists combination, especially for high-scoring combo guards. Could be a cheat code right there. Underdog is super easy to play, and it's even easier to get started. Just go to the easy-to-use mobile app or go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with our promo code 1075, and Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100. Plus, they'll give you a mystery special pick to use in your first Pick'em entry. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code 1075 to get your first deposit of $10 or more matched. Must be 18 and older. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
4 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. Second hour of the post-game show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Derek Scott a little bit later on. He's making his way to Nashville. Gamecocks open SEC men's tournament play on Thursday afternoon. Right around this time, they'll be playing on Thursday. Scheduled to tip at 3:30. Well, I think it's scheduled to tip 25 minutes after the conclusion of game one.
Which would be Mississippi State and LSU for the right to play Tennessee.
There you go. So I think a 3 o'clock airtime is what we're going to have. So we won't be here on Thursday. And again, I don't usually do things like this, but selfishly, I hope we're not here on Friday. Not because I want a day off on a Friday, but because that means South Carolina's playing basketball.
Playing very meaningful basketball.
Yeah. And you'd get Auburn if you win.
I've talked myself into maybe if you do beat Auburn, computer rankings, be damned, you can maybe you could have a legitimate case to leapfrog them as a possible 4.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to play the 5-12, and you might not have to play Richmond.
And you ran into a buzzsaw that night, and you didn't play well. You played poorly, they played awesome, and everything just kind of built upon that. Auburn would certainly be a favorite over South Carolina, and Auburn's been great.
Yeah.
They've been great. Again, the league is so strong. That's why I say that's the hard part. It's like on the one, you're 13-5 on the one hand. You're 13-5. But so is Bama, and so is Auburn, and so is Kentucky. And, oh, by the way, somebody did better than all of them. And you beat that team in Tennessee. You played great against Tennessee twice.
You went 2-1 against the top 2 seeds in the conference.
Yeah.
2-1.
Yeah. But because you went 1-2 in the collective.
That's how Kentucky became a top 2 seed.
Because they went 2-1. That's it. It's that simple. That's why we kept saying, boy, you're just pulling for Tennessee to beat Kentucky on Saturday.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it was a favorable matchup.
It was.
They went to Rupp last month and scored 100-plus points and embarrassed them.
Yeah.
That rivalry is tricky.
It is, man.
That rivalry is really tricky because Kentucky got them last year at Thompson Bowling, too.
You and I have talked about it. The reason Thompson Bowling Arena has the capacity it has is because it has more seats than Rupp.
And that's what they wanted to do. That's what that type of rivalry is.
That's it. It's like, well, ours is bigger than Rupp. Well, you're not as good as them. I don't know. So what?
I don't care.
Yeah.
You've never been to a Final Four? I don't care.
Yeah. And I've been in that building. That's a big, big building.
Massive, massive building.
Anyway, we'll come back around to that. Again, answer today's poll question, if you would, please. You can go to @jphillips1075. I'll get Elijah.
I'll vote right now. How about that?
Well, and do me a favor, will you? Since you have ways to do this, can you retweet that, and then we can get some people to do it? But would you be in favor of college football teams playing a spring exhibition against another school instead of the typical intra-squad scrimmage? 2 choices. A, yes, test yourself. B, no, too many risks. And we'll see what happens. But Coach Beamer was just on with Elijah and me in the last half hour. He's in favor of this. He's in favor of playing a real spring game. So, if that helps you.
That's got to be good for TV dollars, too, you'd think.
I would think. I mean, listen, networks love content. Man, SEC
and that
networks,
motivates all of these decisions.
Spring games, my goodness. Like 2 weekends worth of spring games or whatever. Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. Do it 2 weeks in a row. Anyway, hit us up on that one. A couple of NFL things to tell you about. First off, I'm trying not to – I'm not a Panther fan. I like the Panthers. They're my, I guess, second favorite team. I make no secret of the fact that I have been a Denver Bronco fan since the Jimmy Carter administration.
Can't just change allegiance.
I'm not going to. In fact, I made a lot of people around here upset when I was very celebratory when the Broncos beat the Panthers in the Super Bowl a few years back, which now feels like a lifetime ago for both teams because they hadn't, either one of them, been back to the playoffs since that Super Bowl. Not even a daggum wild card game in Cleveland or something.
They've even extended the playoff format.
I know, more people get in. The Panthers haven't even been the road team in Minnesota for a game. And again, Denver can't travel to bleeping Houston
to be the 7 seed in a super wild card round.
But if you're a Panther fan, you got to start if you weren't already, and I imagine you were, you got to really start wondering about what the hell's going on in Charlotte. The Giants have made a trade with the Panthers. This happened yesterday, last night after we left the air, for Brian Burns. And then the Giants, went ahead and signed him to a $150 million contract. $87.5 million is guaranteed. It makes Brian Burns the second highest paid defensive end in the history of the National Football League. And all the Panthers are getting for one of the most prolific players of the last few years is a second-round pick next month and a fifth-round pick in 2025. They're also, and this is what's weird, they're swapping fifth-round picks. They're both terrible in this year's draft. So I don't even know big deal for that one. You're getting a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick for a guy who has been to the Pro Bowl 2 straight years. Last year, and he's right, by the way, his sack total dropped to 8, but he basically says, man, by the time the game was on the fourth quarter was around, we were losing so bad that the other team wasn't in they were just running the clock out. I didn't have opportunities for 4 quarters most of the games to show off my skills. Now, there's a little give and take in there, but over the last 5 seasons, he has 46 sacks. Again, he's been fantastic, and he moved from linebacker to end. He can move around a little bit in a 3-4-4-3 system, depending on what you want to use. And here's the next part of it, Elijah. I don't know how much of a real football upgrade this is for him, because the Giants hadn't been great. Now I think the Giants are better than the Panthers.
Well, they're actively trying to make their team better right now. I think that's one big difference between the Panthers and the Giants.
I don't know if there were other offers. I'm sure we'll learn more about this process in the coming days, in terms of interest or where Brian wanted to go. I mean, he doesn't have like a no trade clause or anything, but it's pretty obvious he wanted out of Charlotte. And by the way, he's only 25. He'll be 26 when the season starts. He's young. He's got so much time left in him, even at a violent position. They tried, the Panthers did, last year to sign him to an extension, and he was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So now, again, a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick for a 2-time Pro Bowler who's only 25 years old, and he just became the second highest paid player at his position in the history of the league. This dude's value is high. And you seem to have gotten him maybe for, it's not the Mac Jones to Jacksonville trade, which is like, I think, a box full of jock straps and a bag of balls.
I think the Patriots got a new washing machine.
Yeah, it's nice. Those big industrial washers, man.
There's a lot of value there.
Yeah, I mean, uniforms get dirty, dude.
Those managers have a tough job, man. And it just got a whole lot easier in New England.
But I think if I'm a Panther fan, I've got to start questioning what the heck is going on. Okay, you get a second-round pick. I realize you can get some value there. Some. But now are you having to cross your fingers that you're going to get another guy like this at that spot? I don't know what they're doing up there, man.
You better hope your scouting department's really good.
I just don't know. I'd be really concerned. I mean, you're looking at what just feels like at least you had something to build upon, and after losing Luke Kuechly a couple of years ago, this guy sort of emerged out of his shadow, if you will, as a bona fide star, and he doesn't want any part of you. That's what concerns me if I'm a fan. This guy doesn't want to play for my team anymore, because that's what's happening here.
And then you are just going to become, I mean, there's only one New York Jets, my man, but I mean, you're getting really close to becoming the next Jets, where it's like this is a last place resort for some players, and for the really, really good ones, they're going to want out. You don't want to have, a Leonard Williams on your defensive line, who also, ironically enough, ended up going to the Giants. Yeah. But guys who just do not want to be in your organization because there is just such a lack of direction that no one's going to want to waste their primes there. And I feel like, maybe hiring a head coach who is definitely not qualified to be an NFL head coach right now. And it feels like that's one of the only guys who could just take the job. You are becoming the place that is just the opportunity for guys to start their careers or end them, and they're not going to want to spend their primes there.
You mentioned the Jets, and if I don't have it in front of me, but I believe from stories we were talking about at the end of the season and through the coach hiring process, if I'm not mistaken, in the Tepper era, the Panthers are tied with the New York Jets for the worst overall record in the NFL.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good company.
Yeah. I mean, that's, the Jets have been a laughingstock of the NFL since Joe Namath went to the Rams.
Your Jets down south.
I mean, seriously, the Jets have had like 5 good seasons since then, it feels like.
2 AFC Championship appearances.
Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez. Yeah. And they like caught lightning in a bottle for a couple of years, and they were pretty. They were pretty good. But even then, they kind of Jets gonna jet.
I forgot. I think it was either against the Steelers or maybe it was the Patriots or the Colts. It was in one of those AFC Championship games. I want to say they blew a lead. Like they actually.
And I forget which game the butt fumble was, but it was one of those. Right?
Oh, that was the Patriots. Yeah, Thanksgiving Day in 2012.
So anyway,
what a day.
Yeah. I'm. Like I say, my dear Aunt Judy, who I love to death and has been a season ticket holder at that ballpark since it opened. And she calls me, what are my Panthers doing? I'm like, Aunt Judy, you don't want to know. I don't.
Ignorance is bliss.
I don't know, man.
You don't.
I don't know what they're trying to do right now. But, pulling for something. And I just keep coming around, and now I'm being a little conspiracy theorist, and I don't mean to be, but I just feel like Tepper's going to find a way to hold this against the fan base. And we're not any good. Nobody's coming. I need a better stadium. I got to move the team. Yeah. How about put a product on the field that's worth a darn?
But you can move them to Charlottesville, and if you're still a 1-2 win team every year, no one's going to come to the games.
Right.
No one's going to. So you can make them the tickets as cheap as possible, but if they are cheeks year in and year out, no one's going to want to pay anything for it.
Couple of big name running backs switching teams and going from good to good, maybe good to better. We'll give you that as the post-game show continues. Been telling you for a long time about our great friends at AAA Heating and Air. They now are providing you with professional and residential electrical services. That's like panel upgrades, lighting installation all around your home, nice accent lighting, floodlights all around the house, make things more secure, make things nicer, generator installation. And they can repair a lot of those things as well. Plus, of course, they're ready to give you everything you need to make sure you and your family are comfortable inside your home when it comes to your HVAC system. If you haven't had a tune-up in a while, now's a great time to call them up at 803-677-1500 and make sure you stay nice and cool through Columbia's very hot spring and summer months. Or you can even get a brand new system from AAA and a free quote. Call AAAtoday.com. Log on, punch in a few bits of info, and Roy and Dana and the crew will tell you what they can do for you. Give them a shout today. Tell them Jay Phillips at 107.5 The Game sent you, and stay comfortable with AAA Heating and Air. Welcome back into the post-game show on this Tuesday. Jay and Elijah with you. Derek Scott coming up in about an hour talking Gamecock basketball. He's in Nashville. Gamecocks, again, get the winner of Arkansas Vanderbilt. Those two play tomorrow night, and the Gamecocks will play around 3:30-ish on Thursday.
Approximately. Yeah. It's all going to be dependent on how the first game ends and how long it goes. Heaven forbid we have, I don't know, a scuffle breakout, and we have an 18-minute review, and we have to eject some folks and make national news, because if that happens, then 3:30 would be an ambitious starting time.
That's a fair point, sir. Before we get back into the NFL stuff, on that note, Kim Mulkey did go on a Baton Rouge radio station this morning and basically said, listen, I wasn't trying to say I want them to fight. I'm just saying that I talk how I talk and I say what I say, and that's kind of how it is.
She goes, I didn't mean it, but I just said it.
Yeah. So there was no apology, no retraction, no clarification. She basically said, I meant what I said, which, as we talked about yesterday, and I'm not going to dwell on this today. We had a long show about this yesterday. But basically, it was she was trying to say pick on somebody your own size. But again, we played a cut of her saying that how Angel Reese had backed up a teammate when there was a similar incident with LSU basketball about a month ago, which is what Camilla was doing. And in the moment, I don't know that Camilla is sitting there thinking, I'm a lot bigger than somebody else. I think she's just thinking, I just watched my, one teammate get pulled and then another one get a forearm, and I don't like that. Now, again, I've said many times already, Camilla got what she deserved, and she has admitted that she got what she deserved, and Dawn has admitted that she got what she deserved. Justin wanted to weigh in on that before we get to some more NFL stuff. Hey, Justin, how you doing, bud?
Doing good, guys. How y'all doing?
Good, man.
Fantastic.
Hey, guys, I'm happy for the win on Saturday, but at the end, I didn't like the uglies, and this should not happen to anybody,
Right. No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't, and it was a bad look. It's it's not really a catch-22, but as the sport grows and you get these kind of rivalries to form and build, you're going to get the competitive nature of athletes, male or female, to incredibly competitive coaches that do instill a lot of themselves into their players. And I believe Kim Mulkey. Kim Mulkey doesn't want them to fight, and she talked about the ugliness of it. I mean, I would imagine that she and Flau'jae Johnson have had a pretty nice conversation, and by nice I mean not nice.
Does Kim Mulkey have nice conversations?
Well, I don't know.
Even the nice ones, I think.
They could be a little fiery, but she. Again, Flau'jae Johnson messed up real bad, too.
Mm-hmm.
Did Camilla mess up worse? Then we get into more subjectivity. Again, Flau'jae with the intentional foul out of frustration on Malaysia Fulwiley. That happens. Carolina was getting excited, and Ashlyn Watkins got excited, and Flau'jae didn't like that. That's when Flau'jae should have really been punished and given a technical foul, in my opinion, and ejected from the game.
Because that's the escalator there, right? I mean, that's eventually what happened at the end of that game was a result of everything that happened in the 3.5 quarters leading up to it.
Right.
There, I mean,
and that's going to be, and that's good for the sport in terms of the rivalry,
the competitiveness.
Yeah. What's bad?
It was awesome.
What's bad is a fight, and as you mentioned, it takes 18 daggum minutes to figure out what the heck is going on. But
it takes away from the game. I mean, yes, this game on Sunday was talked about on First Take.
Yeah,
it was talked about on Undisputed. It was talked about on the Dan Lebitard show, on the Dan Patrick show. It was everywhere because of the fight, not because of the great game that that eventually led to it. It took away from the real value it brought to the entire sport. And I think that's the damage control Dawn was really trying to do when she was on the podium with Craig Sankey.
Right.
And when she was in the press conference afterwards, there was a heavy emphasis on this is not what we are. This is not what the sport is. She is as big of an ambassador for women's college basketball than anybody involved in the sport. And I think she knew pretty damn well what an incident like that will do to it as opposed to advancing it.
Yeah. Justin, thanks for the phone call. And, yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. But it happened, and how you move on. And let's see when Kim is in front of the national media next week. Because her team, let's not forget, despite the greatness of South Carolina basketball, who won last year's national championship?
They are the defending national champions.
So there's a lot of spotlight on them as well. So let's see, how different. And I'm not predicting that it will be, mind you. But just wanted to give you an update that Kim did speak this morning in Baton Rouge on that, and basically said, I said what I said, and I'm going to stick by it. So that's her prerogative. No question there. Back to some NFL news. Again, one thing that's funny, by the way, we're in what's called the legal tampering period. I've made fun of that the last few years. If nothing else, NFL at least come up with a name that's better than that. Legal tampering just seems like a big oxymoron. But the Baltimore Ravens today announced a 2-year, $16 million deal for, wait for it, Derrick Henry. That's right. The best running back over the last 10 years is going to join the number one rushing attack in the AFC, going to be backing up Lamar. Going to
get like 4 carries in the AFC Championship game. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, that's at least give him 10.
5 maybe.
He's 30 years old. Again, it's a deal that it's got incentives that could pay him an additional $2 million a year. So this could be a total package of $20 million. He can't be what he was for the Titans anymore. You can't, your body just doesn't allow that to happen at that position. And he has been banged up a few times. But and I did not realize this. Maybe I had just forgotten about it. The Ravens had actually tried to work a deal with Tennessee for him last season and couldn't come to an agreement. Last year, the Ravens had 2,661 rushing yards, but they needed it back. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are leaving the team as free agents. Edwards is going to the Chargers. I don't know that Dobbins has signed with anybody yet, or at least announced that yet. Of course, Lamar was their leading rusher by only a few yards, and nobody on that team, that's the thing about it, nobody on that team had more than 900 total yards rushing last year.
Balanced attack.
Yeah. I don't know if Derrick Henry is the answer to kind of go to your point about the playoffs to take some of the pressure off Lamar. I think Lamar is going to be Lamar. And one of the things that I talked about in the playoff game they lost to Kansas City was that Lamar hit his average. It didn't feel like he had done very much, but he actually hit his per-game average in that game. They just need a little bit more, I suppose. Or, man, I don't know, Elijah. Maybe they're just not the Chiefs. Maybe the fact is nobody in the AFC is the Chiefs, which is why the Chiefs have won 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls.
Well, then if you think about it, Lamar might have hit his averages, but he did throw a terrible interception at the end of the game, which you cannot throw. Zay Flowers made an incredibly stupid mistake that you cannot make to negate a really great play and then fumble the ball into the end zone. The Ravens, I still believe, are the best team in the AFC. But when it got down to the game that mattered the most, you made more dumb mistakes to get yourself out of it. I don't know if Derrick Henry makes them any better. It makes them different because the thing with Gus Edwards is Gus Edwards can get you about 55, 60 yards on 6, 7, 8 carries. Trust me, I watched a lot of Tennessee Titans football over the last decade.
Right.
Covered him for a while. While Derrick Henry is great, he's going to go down as one of the best 21st century running backs to ever to play, and have one of the most impressive highlight reels of any running back post 2010. It takes 4 quarters for it to get there. He's a high volume rusher. He has to touch the ball 20 plus times because his running style is so physical that when it gets to the 4th quarter, no one's going to want to tackle that tractor that's holding a football. And that's exactly how his career has gone. He'll run the ball 20 times into a wall of offensive linemen for 40 yards, and then the last 5 carries of the game, he'll pop off for 70. including maybe a 45-yard touchdown in there. That's going to take the ball out of Lamar's hands pretty often. If you want to maximize Derrick Henry, you got to give him the ball 25 times. I don't know if that works really well in that offense of the ball being out of Lamar Jackson's hands for 25 different plays.
Yeah,
it could, but I'm skeptical.
No, and it's up to Todd Monken to figure those things out. And Todd did a nice job last year, I thought, with revamping that offense, tweaking that offense. Can he do it again with a guy like this? And will Mr. Bisciotti say, "We're paying this dude $8 million a year, Todd"? Forget about what John Harbaugh says. I'm paying this guy $8 million a year. I need him to
30 touches, buddy.
Yeah, I need him to touch the ball. All right. More phone calls, and we'll update the spring game poll question as the post-game show continues. Time to tell you about our great friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. Are you a homeowner? You're looking to make some improvements? As I've told you before, these folks are fantastic at home equity lines of credit. You've been in your house for a while. Your family's getting a little bigger. Kids need a playroom. Maybe you need an addition for just another bedroom. Whatever it is that you might need. Or you want to get the kitchen nice and revamped. Then Palmetto Citizens can really help you out. And listen, you can easily access your line of credit over a 10-year draw, so you can kind of keep these things moving as you need them. They're ready to help you out, and they can make sure that these payments can fit your needs and your budget. Apply online today. Visit palmettocitizens.org or any of their 14 convenient Midlands locations. My wife and I are customers. We use the Millwood branch. Great people up there. Wherever you go, you're going to love them. Palmetto Citizens. Achieve your potential.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to report to you that might be causing some delays on the roadways here this Tuesday afternoon. We'll start in Lexington County with a disabled vehicle causing some traffic backup. The right exit ramp completely blocked on I-26 westbound over at Sunset Boulevard. Exit 110. Again, a disabled vehicle has the right exit ramp blocked. An accident's been reported in Lexington County as well on Barr Road at Wildlife Road and on Harbison Boulevard at I-26. Here in Richland County, an accident's been reported at Hugie Street near Blossom Street and one over at Western Lane at Coon Road.
Talking a little NFL offseason news. Again, the Panthers, if you haven't heard, have traded Brian Burns to the Giants for, let me see here, a Bill Parcells autograph football, a Phil Simms used helmet, a second-round pick, and a fifth-round pick.
And Michael Strahan, game-worn sock.
That's right.
Just one. I mean, it's been a while since he's played. It's been decades. So finding both was probably a little too much of a chore.
Wait, correction. You actually don't get the Parcells, Simms, or Strahan memorabilia. It's just the second-round pick and the fifth-round pick.
Okay, well, the sock would have been cool.
I kid because I care. But if I'm a Panther fan, I'm just like, what are we doing?
Well, if you're a Panther fan, what's motivating you to go to a game?
Yeah, I mean, what are we doing? I mean, we're just getting rid of every good player we can get rid of.
Have they made any acquisitions? I haven't seen a single one that they might have made.
Not of consequence.
And I think they have positive cap space. They have space to be able to make a move.
So there's that. Derrick Henry going to the Ravens from the Titans. And the other big running back I was talking about, I think we mentioned this briefly yesterday, but Saquon Barkley leaving the Giants for the Eagles.
How about that?
NFC East rivalry means nothing to Saquon Barkley.
Oh, rivalries that mean nothing. Is
Saquon from Pennsylvania? I know he played for Penn State, but is he from Pennsylvania? I mean, I could look that up if you want me to. I didn't know if you knew.
Not off the top of my head, but you know what? I would not be surprised because then that would give a little bit of a local tie as to why he would do that signing. He is from the Bronx.
Oh, so he's a New Yorker.
And went to play for Penn State, and now he's going to go play for the Eagles.
You better never go back to the Bronx.
For the Birds.
Yeah. Don't ever. You can't go home. You know that whole. Can you go home again? Or you can't go home again? No, you can't.
Oh, did you hear about? I guess there's a little bit of a war of words between Saquon Barkley and Tiki Barber. Tiki Barber. He's currently on WFAN as a radio host, and during his afternoon show yesterday, he said, "quote He's dead to us now. He's dead to us. Yeah. You're dead to us, Saquon. Good luck. You're dead to me."
I mean, I get it.
Dead to us.
I feel like
only a current running back can be this mad or only a former running back can be this mad at a current running back going to play.
But I mean, that's their biggest rival. I realize that each NFC East rivalry in and of itself is a great rivalry. That's that's why it's the best division in football for the rivalries.
Yep.
Which is why when they revamp things, like Dallas still stayed in the NFC East. Like we can't screw with this. But if you boil it down, you've got Dallas versus Washington, and you've got New York versus Philadelphia. So I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. And I didn't realize he was from the Bronx. That's why I say I didn't know if he was from somewhere in Pennsylvania.
Makes it worse.
Yeah.
You think Dawn Staley's bought a Saquon Barkley jersey already?
I don't know. Probably not yet.
I don't know. She's quick with it.
Probably not yet. Well, she's got the inside scoop to Mitchell and Ness up there in Philly. They make all those jerseys.
Shoot, she probably had it before the news broke.
She might. I don't know. Got some good comments. Thank you for this. And if you'd like to participate, please do. Hit me up at jphillips1075. And I think Elijah retweeted this. He did a flash poll after talking to Coach Beamer, who is in favor of a spring exhibition against another school. And Shane's in a minority of coaches around the country. But I get it. And as he points out, the number one fact here is that college football is the only sport that doesn't have anything like this. Everybody else plays some form of preseason or exhibition game. But I've asked you, would you be in favor of college football teams playing a spring exhibition against another school instead of the typical intra-squad scrimmage? Yes, test yourself, or no, too many risks. Right now, 78.9% of you say yes, test yourself. So 21.1 are against. Alex says both of these. Would love to see it happen with a team they wouldn't normally play, but also wouldn't want to risk injury. I get it. It's football, though. People get hurt. I've seen injuries in spring games. You don't like it? I remember one year with Coach Spurrier, and I forget the player now, but there was an injury, and Steve just stopped the spring game. He's like, all right, you know what? Because it's a risk. And at that point, it's like, why even have it? I mean, at all.
Right.
You know?
And, you can non-contact an injury just as easy, working out on your own.
Ryan says, yes, play the FCS school at this time, not during the regular season, Power 5 and Group of 5 only for regular season. I just want to make a quick point here. I promise you that is not my burner account.
I'm skeptical.
I promise you that I am not Ryan Banks. I am not R. Banks 7.
This sounds like a Kim Mulkey take my word for it type thing here.
But that's how I feel,
That
too,
is
Ryan.
absolutely you.
Another Ryan says, yes, but these things would be highly controlled, very similar to what you see at the NFL combined practices or high school scrimmages. No way you play something like that as a true exhibition. Doesn't make sense. Way too many risks. And let's see, another one here. This one's interesting, too. Alan asks, how many games are we going to ask college football players to play? You got the expanded playoffs. You want more. Now 2 full-blown scrimmages. When is enough enough? Well, not 2 full-blown scrimmages, just 1. I'm not here for the intra-squad, and I mean they're already going to have a couple of intra-squad scrimmages anyway. But I'm not here for the Saturday afternoon, or now at Carolina at least Saturday night spring game, Garnet and Black game, and then, Furman coming down. Just bring Furman down.
Just replace it.
Yeah.
Replace the inter squad one with a close to real football game. You can even put the red jerseys on the quarterbacks where no one gets touched.
Yes, great point.
There's a lot of things that you can do.
I've said that before. You could certainly put some rules in play. There's no blitzing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to have kickoffs. You cannot hit the quarterback. And you could almost, and look, now I'm getting a little too far down sort of a silly road, but you'll see my point. You could basically say, because some of the people that have mentioned to me before, they're concerned is that the FCS guys, whether it was here, wherever this game might be played across the country, they'd want to show out. And they might come in and really want to bowl the quarterback over, or really make a really physical play that you might not otherwise see in a scrimmage. And you may be able to say to the other team, and again, I doubt it, but follow my logic here. Hey, athletics director at FCS school, you're going to get, $250,000 for coming to our ballpark and playing this game. But if you get a dude who gets what is deemed to be an unnecessary roughness or something of that ilk,
or a shenanigans clause,
something like that, yeah, we're cutting it by 2/3, or you get nothing. Or what, there's a way to really, and then the AD stresses to his head coach or her head coach, hey, seriously, yeah, red jersey, yellow jersey, green jersey, whatever color means don't touch that guy, don't bleeping touch that guy because we need that check. And I think you could pull that off. I really do. And you could charge, I don't know, charge $10. And people are going to buy a beer and a hot dog and a Coke.
You can get the game sponsored. I mean, this, it will draw on TV.
And you get, SEC Network would love these. ACC Network would love these. Big Ten Network, Peacock, whatever.
You can mic up a quarterback during a play or something. This is where you can get experimental and fun, but it's against another team too, to where it's not just the monotony of a normal spring game and practice.
Because, I mean, the guys in your spring game, they're still tackling each other.
Mm-hmm.
But as Shane pointed out, and I think the biggest thing is you would get, in his opinion, a better indication of who you've got, what you need to improve, even if it is an FCS team. And again, to go back to what this guy Ryan, Power 5 and Group of 5 only for regular season. I mean, amen, brother.
Sure.
And I've had this conversation before on the airwaves, so I'm not going to beat the drum again today. I just don't think FCS schools belong on Power 5 schedules anymore. I just don't. Again, 4% winning percentage since they've split into divisions. And that's against all of FBS. Against the Power 5, it's less than 3%. I mean, you're not going to win. It's already a glorified scrimmage. But to the guy who says, how many games am I asking him to play? I'm not really asking him to truly play another full-on game. You're going to play it in March or April anyway.
And the starters might play half a game too.
Yeah.
But
you're clearing the bench.
Colton Gauthier would have put up numbers in this game, our theoretical game here last year. I mean, pick a random backup you'd like to see.
We'll get some phone calls on this as the post-game show rolls on.
Here we go.
Welcome back in. Post-game show continues on this Tuesday afternoon. Derek Scott, the voice of the Gamecocks, coming up inside a half hour. Drive around the SEC is coming up. Our good friend Tim Frisbee, Pops, hit me. He's a PA guy. Saquon, I guess he was maybe born in the Bronx. Or you say Brooklyn or the Bronx?
The Bronx.
Okay. But
per Wikipedia.
Pops, yeah, I think he was born there. But Pops says Saquon grew up as a teen in Allentown, or near Allentown, and attended Whitehall High School, all-state PA guy in high school. So, okay, that makes it a little better.
A little more explainable. How about that?
Yeah. Because, again, tons of New York kids, I would think, New York City kids go to play football at Penn State.
Yeah. Penn State's they're pretty much, they've been a national brand.
Well, Joe Paterno was from New York City and recruited New York City quite heavily. I know that much. But anyway, if you didn't hear, Saquon is leaving the Giants for the Eagles, which is kind of like leaving immediately as like if Spencer Rattler had left Carolina for Clemson.
That would go over well.
Juice
Wells going to Ole Miss already went really well.
Yeah.
That went over very well.
Yeah, and our guy, John, Dion LaCorn. Thank you, John. Yeah, Dion LaCorn. Like, was it, and I can't remember, was it a leg injury? Because I remember, like, Taki Muhammad had a broken arm one time in a spring game before then, but, like, Dion had either a broken leg or some really bad leg injury, and Coach was like, all right, game over. Not doing it. But we do have a good one here from William, who suggests a spring game. He says, give me South Carolina at Hawaii.
See, that's why.
See, Williams thinking.
Well, that's why, all the smart kids go to Vanderbilt because that's where they had their season opener a couple of years ago, a week earlier than usual.
Right.
Got to spend like a week practicing there. So I think I think copying off the smart kids' homework might be the way to do this. And let's have a spring game.
When I was little, I didn't go, but I did have some friends that went. Carolina went to Hawaii twice, like in late 70s and somewhere in the early 80s. Like I want to say like 78 and 81 or something like that. And I think they lost them both because I guess you get out there and you're like, whatever. This looks nice.
You're just too busy vacationing.
To
play a real football game.
Donnie hits us on the spring game question. They are glorified scrimmages. High school has jamborees and scrimmages. NFL has preseason. Put your starters in a drive or two. Let the coaches decide the format, but it's a lot better than going vanilla against your own team. Yeah, and that was Shane Beamer's point to us, and it's been his point before. Yeah. I mean, you're not keeping the starters in, and you don't keep the starters in the spring game anyway, because that's part of what you're trying to do here. You really are. It's an evaluation as much as anything else. Yes, we the fan want to go out there and tailgate and have some chicken and barbecue and drink a beer and whatever else. I get it. The truth is. And I'm not dogging anybody because I'm as guilty as anybody, but you can have chicken and barbecue and a beer without having to tailgate.
You can.
Especially in the Midlands of South Carolina.
Any day.
Right. But it's always
anywhere.
It's always fun to go tailgating, and it is. It is. But no, in all seriousness, it's an evaluation. So, yeah, let's just take last year's team. You're going to put Spencer Rattler in 2 series, 3 tops. Right, first quarter. Let's just say first quarter. Let's be conservative. First quarter, he's going in, and then Colton Gauthier and Lenore Sellers, and you're going to play DK at quarterback a little bit, and you're going to run some of those packages, right? You're going to do that kind of stuff. But you could absolutely put the quarterback in the different colored jersey, right? Yellow, green, again, whatever color that your team has.
And it's 2-hand touch on him. If you want a blitz to get him a sack.
Yeah.
If you touch him twice, down.
Yeah, but again, I would even say like no blitzing, no kickoffs, all punts are fair catches. Don't even really want to punt, but we'll punt because I want my punter to punt. I'll worry about my special teams formations for my punt returns later.
Hey, we'll end the game on a field goal contest where we go basically a shootout from 50-plus yards.
And you know what? I think that would be a really good idea. And I'm really not kidding because then there's a little pressure that builds for your kickers. Mm-hmm. And can they make a clutch punt or a clutch kick?
Can you block a clutch kick?
Yeah, there's ways to have fun with this. And I don't think, and if you think, well, okay, but if you played Furman or Wofford, are they going to keep their starters in all game? No. They've got a whole season to play in the fall, too.
If they want to, let them.
They have teams to, they have rosters to evaluate as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and I agree with what Donnie says. It's a lot better than going vanilla against your own team. This is a incredibly violent sport, regardless of when and how you play it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get what the risks are, but those risks are there in September, October, and November too, against teams like FCS schools who might want to ball out against you. You still got to play them. We'll update the poll. Headlines of the day. Derek Scott talking hoops. You're listening to the postgame show. The risk of you being hot all summer is a bad one. You don't need that. And there's no exhibition games at AAA Heating and Air, just pros that know what's up. All right? So if it's time for you to get a brand new AC system, or if you like the one you have, and it's, just time for a checkup, AAA Heating and Air is ready to help you out. 803-677-1500. One of their great techs can come out to the house, give your system a full inspection. If they find anything wrong, they'll let you know up front with their true transparency pricing how much it's going to cost you. And if it's just time for a brand new system, then Roy and Dana Finley are ready to give you 12 months, no payments or interest, plus a 15-year parts and labor guaranteed. You can get a free estimate for that new system when you log on to call888today.com. That's call888today.com. Also providing electrical services now. Great people to work with. They've done great things at my house. You'll love them. It's AAA Heating and Air.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to report to you that might be causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon. We'll go ahead and start off in Lexington County. An incident has been cleared on the right exit ramp of I-26 westbound at Sunset Boulevard near exit 110. Again, that incident's been cleared, so traffic's moving more smoothly on that ramp. We'll stay in Lexington County with an accident reported on St. Andrews Road at Ashland Road, and an accident at Harbison Boulevard at I-26, as well as one at Boiling Springs Road at Bethany Church Road, and one recently reported at Bar Road at Wildlife Road, are all causing delays in Lexington County. In Richland County, we have two to report, one on Hugh G. Street near Blossom Street, and one on Western Lane at Coon Road.
It is time for the 5 o'clock news. Welcome back in. It's also the final hour of the post-game show on this Tuesday, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. The voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, going to join us in just a little bit. We've also spoken to Coach Shane Beamer today, and we've got a poll question running that I'll update for you in just a few. But first, let's get you into what's going on this afternoon. First off, congratulations once again to head coach Lamont Paris, making history as the first Gamecock men's basketball coach to be named AP SEC Coach of the Year. South Carolina, of course, joined the league officially in the 91-92 school year. Coach Fogler did share an SEC Coach of the Year title back in the I guess the 97 season when Carolina won the league, but Lamont becomes the first to win it from the AP point of view. The single season best turnaround in program history. They won 11 games last year. They won 13 games in conference play this year, 25 overall. And again, going to start their SEC tournament on Thursday afternoon against the winner of Arkansas and Vanderbilt, who play tomorrow night. Dawn Staley had already been named SEC Coach of the Year, so Lamont has now won the conference and the AP Coach of the Year awards from the Southeastern Conference. For Dawn and Lamont, the third time in conference history that the men's and women's basketball coaches from the same school have won those awards in the same year. The national awards are still to come.
And I can guarantee, a source tells me that Lamont did get a first-place vote for the Henry Iba Basketball Writers Association Coach of the Year award.
Sources close to the situation?
Very close to the situation.
Nice.
Very close. So he will at least receive a first-place vote from someone. He'll receive Who knows if it's enough to necessitate an entire award.
I got a hunch that he's going to get more than
Yeah.
Now, does he win it?
He can get close. The guy who I gave the second place vote to, I think, is going to get a lot too. That's going to be his biggest competitor.
And that was?
Danny Hurley.
Yeah. See,
that case is interesting because he lost his top three scorers on a championship team and at least 4 different occasions lost starters in the starting lineup, and they still have more 20-plus point wins than any team in the country.
They're great. They're great. But that's
so
such a blue blood program. But he's doing fine. I mean, look, you still got to go do it. I get it.
Yeah.
Which is why I think Dawn should be in the running for National Women's Coach of the Year. Mm-hmm. 5 starters lost from a Final Four team, and you are without question the best team in the country, the best program in the country.
Let your starting center go try to qualify her home country for the Olympics and still end up beating UConn by about 20+ points.
Well, yeah, what did we... Well,
Spirit of that game was a 20+ pointer.
Right. 56 combined point margin of victory in the 2 games that Camilla missed.
Yeah. And one was against the top 15 team.
Yeah.
That's the blue blood of the sport.
So,
really.
Congratulations to Lamont and Dawn. Speaking of Dawn Staley, by the way, she and Brad will be on Carolina Calls as soon as we're done. So in less than 1 hour's time. So make sure you tune in for that. I imagine she'll have a lot to say about the entire weekend.
There was a lot to talk about.
There was a lot to talk. Again, I hate that what happened Sunday happened, not the victory, of course, in the championship.
They were cool with that.
But because it really, we hardly had time to talk about that amazing Tennessee finish after what was almost an amazing debacle.
But when I'm telling you, you want to talk about vibes I felt from the weekend, that game felt over, capital O, whenever Raven missed the 3 and Jules Spear went to the free throw line to shoot 2 with 3 seconds left. That felt over. In my head, I'm like, wow, this is how it ends.
Right.
This is how it's going to end before even going to the title game. And it felt like it was absolutely over. And for Camilla to bank in a 3 at the buzzer, that's nothing short of a miracle, and we barely got to get to it.
Continuing our headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media. Again, Panther fans, feeling for you. The Panthers have completed a trade with the New York Giants that will send Pro Bowl defensive end Brian Burns to New York. And the Giants went ahead and locked him up on a $150 million 5-year contract with 87.5 of it guaranteed. The Panthers, in return, are basically just getting a second-round pick this year, so next month, a 2025 fifth-round pick. And, again, I don't know where they pick in the 5th round. because both teams had bad years. They are swapping 5th-round picks this year, which again just makes like what these little add-ons that the Panthers do. This one is kind of meaningless. Last year I feel like the Bears, they had it all worked out, and then the Bears went, and DJ Moore.
And the fans
Right?
like, what are we going to do? Say no
Yeah,
now?
that's where I really feel that way. It's like they were sitting across from each other, some nice like hotel boardroom in Chicago or Charlotte or wherever. And they got it all worked out with draft picks and whatever else. And like Tepper's getting ready to sign it, and like Ms. McCloskey says, and my son says we need to have DJ Moore.
Seems like a nice young man. We would like to have him. And they signed away. All right, okay, sure.
And Tepper's like, that's fine. We can get it. He's just a receiver. I'm a football guy.
I've paid for drinks to throw on fans more expensive than this receiver.
So now, again, this is now your best player, Brian Burns, and you've traded him. So in the last 2+ seasons, you've traded C-Mac, who all he did was basically be the best player for his team.
That went to the Super Bowl.
DJ Moore, DJ alone can't make the Bears better, like a lot better, but he made them better, and he is a very good wide receiver. And now you traded Brian Burns.
Congratulations.
Do they have anything left to trade?
They probably have a really good washing machine. And if the movie Semi-Pro taught you anything, you can get Ed Monix for a good washing machine.
Oh, man. I do. For like our good friend Chris Clark, my dear Aunt Judy, and the dozens of Panther fans everywhere. I do. I feel for you. Because you might really now have the worst team in the NFL. And
that's down south, baby.
Man, I feel for you. The Houston Texans are working out a trade with the Cincinnati Bengals that will send Joe Mixon to Houston instead of releasing him. He was going to be released. The Texans traded an undisclosed pick. 7th rounder in 2028.
Maybe an undisclosed appliance as well.
Right. Well, it says a draft pick. Yeah, they might have sent an appliance as well. I don't know. Or who's the mattress guy in Houston that makes all those bets?
Mattress Mac?
Yeah.
Mattress Mac might have sent him a Tempur-Pedic that's going to make it worth their while.
Sure.
We'll take Joe Mixon in exchange for the finest Tempur-Pedic at Mattress Mac's furniture outlet.
The Cleveland Browns have agreed today to a 1-year contract with Jameis Winston to back up Deshaun.
You want to talk about the most interesting quarterback room in the NFL right now?
Cleveland Browns.
Jameis Winston and Deshaun Watson.
Joe Flacco was doing it last year, of course, after Deshaun went down with an injury and had to have a little surgery, right? I think. Did he have surgery or just have to rest it? I can't remember now.
I think there might have been a procedure done.
Yeah. But Deshaun is, look, Deshaun has to be the starter for Cleveland.
You don't pay that much money for somebody.
Yeah, again, they're paying him, what is it, 40-something million guaranteed a year?
And it just hasn't helped that he's been zero good since he's been there.
And one other one, the Ravens. We mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the Baltimore Ravens today have announced that they have signed Derrick Henry to a 2-year, $16 million deal with incentives that could pay the 30-year-old up to $10 million per season. He was the best running back of the last decade. Pairs him with Lamar, who's now won 2 MVPs. The Ravens led the league in rushing last season with nearly 2,700 total yards. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are gone. You made a great point, and as somebody who's covered the Tennessee Titans from your time working in Nashville, I agree with you. Derrick Henry is the kind of guy who needs, double-digit touches. And maybe you work that out. Lamar's going to get his, because that's what Lamar does.
You need him to.
Yeah, you do need him to. And Lamar led the team in rushing, but again, nobody goes out there. They don't. This is not a 1,000-yard rushing kind of team. They don't need Derrick Henry to do that anymore. The question is the one you posed. Does Derrick Henry need that to happen to justify being paid somewhere between $8 and $10 million a year
Yeah.
at age 30.
I think he does. He is that type of runner where if you look at a lot of his rushing splits, the damage is done in the fourth quarter, and sometimes that's to their detriment because they would get behind a lot of games because they were so married to the run game. But that's going to help the play action game out a whole lot. And, before you move on here, one fun fact, Derrick Henry joins a long list of Titans legends who will probably end their careers in Baltimore along with Derek Mason, Steve McNair, and Samari Rolle. There are a lot of players for the Titans who spend their prime years there and then end up going to Baltimore in one facet or another.
Interesting.
It feels very odd, but also incredibly fitting to see Derrick Henry traded to the Ravens.
And an in-state note for you, if you have not heard this was done yesterday. We didn't get around to it. We were so busy here locally. But Justin Gray is the new head men's basketball coach at Coastal Carolina, coming down from Cullowhee, where he has led Western Carolina to back-to-back winning seasons for the first time in 13 years. You might remember that name if you're a casual basketball fan. Justin played his college ball at Wake Forest, was on staff at Wake for a few years, has also worked up in Rock Hill at Winthrop. The Chanticleers this year had a rough season. Cliff Ellis resigned during the season, back right before Christmas. And Cliff I've interviewed Cliff on several occasions. I think kind of ran out of gas, man. But he's been in coaching for nearly 50 years.
He's doing it for a while.
Yeah.
Can't do it forever.
But Justin Gray, the former Wake Forest Demon Deacon, will officially take over now as the new head coach of the Chanticleer men's basketball program. And with that is our Integrated Media headlines of the day. Don't forget that Integrated Media is able to do so many things for you, including small jobs like, hey, you got a TV that you need moved from one room to another and get it all hooked up and wires hidden. They can do that for you. Installing your doorbell systems, security cameras, and, of course, outdoor home theater, all your home theater needs, really. But small jobs, too. Don't think that they've got to come in and just do a brand new, big-time mega system. Nah, just call 803-948-8327. Tell them what's up. And they'll tell you what they can do for you, which is pretty much just about anything you need when it comes to electronics around the home. 803-948-8327, my very good friends at Integrated Media. The voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, on the other side of the break. We'll talk about the thriller in Starkville on Saturday and what to start looking forward to when the postseason begins. Derek joins us as the postgame show continues. All right, welcome back into the post-game show on this Tuesday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. We're still efforting Derek, who I know is quite literally arriving in Nashville right about now.
Industry term.
Yeah. Efforting.
It's a verb.
Industry term. But we will get Derek as quickly as possible. And should there be a reason why we can't get him today, then we'll force him to do it tomorrow.
There's efforting and then there's forcing.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, you know people.
I do.
And
I know
you'll
people
be
in the area.
Well, you'll be in the area tomorrow. You'll be arriving in Nashville, so you can wrangle him up if you need to.
That's right.
But
I'll be watching him. I'll have an eye on him.
We'll get him as quickly as possible. In the meantime, we were going to do this next break or next segment, but we'll just go ahead and kind of move things up here. But Elijah has been studying the latest bracketology, net rankings, and I guess the latest Jerry Palm bracketology has me
sweating.
Nervous.
Makes your Jerry Palms start sweating.
See what you did there.
Yeah. No, it's not ideal.
Yeah.
It's not an ideal spot.
Yeah.
Either way, though, because we talked about the frequency of the 12 over the 5, and I'll do a more in-depth study this week about how frequently it's happening. And honestly, we're seeing a lot of 13s over 4s the last few years too, and that just goes to show
parity.
The parity in the sport is just insane, and that's what makes this event so great every year. Is that you do have these 13s and 12 seeds that constantly make for enticing matchups every single season. But South Carolina, I think with the week that they have ahead, obviously you're not moving up anywhere if you're losing to Vanderbilt or Arkansas.
You're moving down at that point, right?
Yeah. I mean, because both sub 100 teams in the net, Vanderbilt sub 200, so it wouldn't do you any favors. Florida's seeing a little bit of a negative from that. But if I usually like to bank on Joe Lunardi. I think he's kind of the best at this. Jerry Palm's awesome. Love Jerry. Love listening to him. Love reading his stuff on CBS. But I think Joe's probably the most accurate when it comes to forecasting these things, especially when it comes to seeding. And if you look at the teams that are in the 5, South Carolina, Nevada, BYU, San Diego State, you can realistically say that you probably have the second best resume amongst all of those. BYU has a really solid resume. They have 6 quad 1 wins. Yeah. The only thing, they'd be a top 3 or 4 seed if they didn't have 2 quad 2 losses. They don't have a quad 3 or quad 4 loss. If anybody's doing leapfrogging into the 4s, you're going to need Kansas to have a really bad week. Not only lose their first round game, but probably have it be embarrassing,
right?
For it to happen, because Kansas's resume on paper is top 4 seed quality.
And BYU has a win at Kansas.
They do. They're one of the few teams to have a win at Kansas.
Yeah.
Fun Kansas stat. You know how rare a win at Kansas is? Bill Self's winning percentage at Fog Allen, non-con and conference games, is higher than Steph Curry's free throw percentage. It is more likely that Steph Curry misses a free throw than Bill Self lose a game at Fog Allen.
What, like 92, 93?
It's like 93. Yeah. And Steph's like 91 for his career.
Wow.
Heard that on Ion College Basketball podcast a while back.
That's crazy.
It's wild.
Yeah. I've been joking that the 5-12 game makes me nervous just because, as I was saying earlier, for folks like us that don't typically, whether it's Carolina or Clemson fans here in the state, you're not in this tournament very often. And so you look at it more observationally, more objectively than you do emotionally, the way some schools and fans, may look at it. And so you're always picking that, like, which 12 are you picking? How many 12s are you going to pick this year?
I go overboard, man. I like to pick 12s.
Well, exactly. And so that's
fun with it.
But look, and like you said, I would. We can probably find that out, like looking historically since 1985. What is the true winning for? I would imagine the 5s still win the bulk of those games.
I want to start that right now.
But we'll figure that out. In the meantime, as promised, the voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, joining us from Music City, Tennessee. Carolina will get things going on Thursday afternoon. Good to have you, sir. Hope you had a nice trip up there. And let's start with the thriller on Saturday. Kind of give us an idea from your perspective of, look, you want to win every game you play, Derek, but was there a feeling that there was still something on the line in terms of the double bye and the quarterfinal start for the tournament on Saturday in Starkville, or was it just, boys, we got to go win the game?
No, I think everybody was fully aware of the different circumstances there, and that one is one that had all their attention. I say that knowing that when we were on the bus and then on the plane waiting to take off afterwards, that everybody had their phone. You could hear the universal echoing of the audio from the Kentucky-Tennessee game. So, yeah, if they were that into that game, it's because they knew what they were playing for. So those guys knew what was going on there for sure. And not to mention, I just think this, they understood the chance for a 25-win regular season and a chance for a share of second place in that league. All of that, I think, probably added up to more than just getting ready for a game.
And Derek, before we got on, Jay and I were kind of talking about the bracketology discussion behind this, like what South Carolina can gain, but with a successful 2 or 3 games in the SEC tournament. Jerry Palm and Joe Lunardi both have them square on the 5 line right now, and that could be a pretty dangerous game. But we look at some of the teams that are 4 seeds that they have. San Diego State's in that discussion, BYU's in that discussion. What do you think South Carolina's going to have to do here this week to be able to maybe possibly get into a 4 seed line, or is there anything they can do to improve the tournament seeding?
Yeah, I think there's so many variables. There's what you do, there's what others do. So you could do a lot, but if everybody else on that 4 line handles their business, then it can't possibly matter, right? And so that's the big question is, what gets done on both sides. I would say without question, South Carolina's got to win 2 to get into even the debate about that. You've got to handle Arkansas or Vanderbilt, and then you've got to knock off Auburn, because that gets you, if you're 27 wins, you add another Q1 win like that, I would think that at least gets you eligible for the conversation. And then again, as you were just pointing out, then it comes down to what's going on the 4 line. If Kentucky, being one of those teams who put them on the 4 line, if they should, lay an egg on Friday in their quarterfinal, then maybe that's the sort of thing that opens the door. Or maybe, just maybe, Joe and Ken and that crew of experts, maybe they're off a little bit on their analysis of teams from, for instance, the Mountain West Conference that have just been the darlings this season. I think that's also a scenario that sometimes comes into play a little more when real live people, a committee might look a little more skeptically at the Mountain West Conference than the computer guys do.
Talking to Derek Scott. He's in Nashville ahead of the SEC men's basketball tournament. Again, the Gamecocks will get play started on Thursday, 3 o'clock Eastern airtime on Thursday across the Gamecock Radio Network, and, of course, right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia. We know that Coach Paris has been named by conference folks and by the writers now and the media as Coach of the Year. I don't ask you this next question in contrast to the previous head coach, but I do ask you what you feel the biggest attribute he has that his guys have bought into, that has made such a difference to get him and them to this point.
Well, it's hard to pick just one. I think on the one hand, he relates so well to those guys, and they appreciate his perspective on how he teaches his system. I think scheme and his belief in the way they play also is a factor. I mean, he identified specific people to be a part of this program, as any recruiter will, but he did so based on how he wanted to play, and they've all fit very, very well. So I think those are the 2 things that come to mind for me.
Looking ahead this week now, Derek, I'll ask you, you mentioned the trip home and waiting for the airplane and things like that. Was there any dejection upon learning of Kentucky's win, or, Auburn beating Georgia was the last game of the night, I suppose? Or, I mean, how much care can there be from these guys, when you did all you could do?
Yeah, I didn't detect any of that. When we were taking off, we had gotten to the point, I think there was maybe 10 seconds left in that Kentucky game, and Tennessee had made their run, and everybody sounded genuinely excited that it was happening. But then when Jordan James missed that 3-pointer, there was some grumbling about, what are you doing taking that shot? But beyond that, that's kind of where it seemed to die, and everybody moved on as the wheels started rolling on the runway, and we knew we were going airborne. You were going to lose that wireless signal, and that was that. And then when we landed, to be honest with you, the first thing people saw was Camila Cardoso's banked-in three-pointer, and that changed the topic entirely. That was what was first on your phone when you land, and then everybody's perspective is immediately turning in that direction. And so, no, I think, this bunch is pretty unflappable. They did what they needed to do. It didn't turn out to be enough to get them into the double bye, and so on you go. And I think this is a mature enough bunch to not get hung up on that.
I've got to hit a break, but I'd love to have you for just a couple more minutes because I want a couple more things on this team and a little bit of baseball take. Can you hang with us for a second?
Sure thing.
All
Absolutely.
right. Derek Scott, the voice of the Gamecocks. We'll get into the drive around the SEC and more from Derek as the postgame show rolls on. Unlike the big national banks, when you save your money with Palmetto Citizens, it stays right here in the Midlands of South Carolina rather than paying stockholders, loaning or investing money out of state. Your money will stay in the Midlands to support your neighbors, your area's small businesses, and local charitable organizations. And since they're a not-for-profit financial institution, Palmetto Citizens offers you better rates and fewer fees when you borrow or save, whether it's a mortgage, a home equity line, a car loan, a new credit card, putting the kids through school, anything you need. You can open an account today at any of their 14 Midlands branches. You can also log on to palmettocitizens.org and apply for any and all of those needs. And they can help you by managing the payments to fit your needs and budget. My wife and I are customers of Palmetto Citizens. We love them. We use the Millwood branch. Again, 14 locations all across the Midlands. Check them out. Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to report to you that might be causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon. Starting off in Lexington County, accidents have been reported on US 378 near Priceville Road. Another one on I-20 westbound over at US 378 near exit 61. And one more on Boiling Springs Road at Bethany Church Road. In Richland County, we have 2 accidents that have been reported. One on Bush River Road at US 176 near Broad River Road. That's causing some minor traffic delay. And we actually have an incident cleared here in Columbia on I-20 eastbound at I-77 near exit 76A.
It is Drive Around the SEC time, and we're going to continue our conversation for a couple more minutes with our good friend Derek Scott, the voice of the Gamecocks on the ground in Nashville. Gamecocks taking on the winner Thursday of tomorrow night's Arkansas-Vanderbilt game. And again, they'll hit the airwaves at 3 o'clock, will Derek and Judge Manning. Just a couple more thoughts on this basketball team headed into this. It's new territory for the vast majority of them in terms of the expectations of advancement, Derek. And I don't know that that really means a whole lot to them in terms of how they're going to play. But do you feel like this team is being, I don't know, judged a little differently right now when it comes to this tournament and even looking ahead to what we're going to see, next week?
Well, when you say judge differently, you mean compared to other teams or compared to?
Well, if you lose Thursday, somebody's going to say, boy, that was failure. Whereas, let's face it, some nights, or some years, Carolina's had to start on Wednesday. I suppose just the relative expectation of what this program has been doing.
It's funny you say that because I was trying to explain to someone the other day that as great as the Final Four season was, don't forget we had a double bye that year and we were still home basically Friday night, or we were eliminated by Friday night. So, there is no guarantees that regular season success means a thing in the postseason, whether you're talking about the conference tournament or what you do translating from conference tournament into the NCAA tournament. So I don't know that people get too hung up on that because every year it happens. It happens to somebody. There's always a surprise in every conference that makes its way. Just like last night watching the Southern Conference tournament, you had the favorite in Samford, and then you had the long shot, the underdog from East Tennessee. College of Charleston tonight is playing a 7 seed, Stony Brook out of the CAA. So, I think every year you kind of count on that happening somewhere along the way. That's what makes the NCAA tournament so much fun is that it doesn't matter how good you were in the regular season. Purdue and Virginia can speak to that. You can get snuck up on real quickly. You can have a bad day, and it just doesn't matter who you're playing. It's not going to get you through. So I don't know that I think about it in terms of being judged differently. It's just that, like everybody else, you're stepping into that spotlight for that period of time, and then we see how you perform and how it connects for you.
See, Derek, I know Lamont and his crew can't do this thought exercise we're about to do right now, but we can. And that is maybe look ahead. I would be shocked if Arkansas or Vanderbilt were to trip up the Gamecocks on Thursday. But on Friday, if they win, they have a potential matchup against Auburn. And for those who remember Valentine's Day this year, I do. It wasn't too long ago. It was not very pretty at Neville Arena. What do you think can be different about this matchup on a neutral floor in Nashville, and what chances would you give the South Carolina team to be able to beat an Auburn team that is obviously near the top of the SEC and is a projected 4 seed in the NCAA tournament right now?
Well, honestly, everything you just explained, that was in Neville Arena. This will not be, and that's usually where Auburn looks quite different from home venue to other venues. They are a wrecking crew at home. They have, beaten up. The reason their numbers look so good in terms of the efficiency numbers, whether it's Ken Pom or net, is because they beat up on teams. They don't just win. They win by drastically large scores. A lot of that happens at home for them. So the fact that you're playing them somewhere other than Neville Arena leaves me open to all options. And I'll say this, I'm not as willing to take a pass on Thursday as you are, because Arkansas has, as they always seem to do at some point in February or March, figured out a little bit, and they're playing pretty good basketball right now. Their numbers in the last 2 weeks are drastically better than what they were before then. I was studying up on them last night. I'm going to be doing tomorrow's game on the SEC radio network, and so I was familiarizing myself with both of those teams. And Arkansas starts getting a little scary because the guys that they brought in to be their lead scorers are finally playing like that for them. So they are still capable of being a very difficult out, as they are most years when you get to this point in the season.
Speaking of difficult out, thank you for the transition. Before we let you go, I know you've had split duty in the last few weeks, but you had a couple of opportunities here recently to call some baseball games. You were part of what was going on Sunday when Carolina scored 22, including 11 in the sixth. How do you like where this team is, knowing that conference play is now upon us this weekend?
You know, it's always a double-edged sword of, when we get to this time of the year and they're finally ready to jump into league play and trying to figure out what translates and what doesn't, because a lot of times there are guys that are stars in February and early March, and when they start looking at SEC pitching on a regular basis, it's like somebody turns their water off, a lot of times the younger guys especially. And then there are others who might just step up another rung and get hot against that level of competition because they're more suited to it. They're more, experienced with it. Ole Miss is a team that struggled out of the gate, opened their season in Hawaii, and went 2 out of 4 there, and then lost a couple games, I think, in midweeks. But they seem to be playing a little better now. But at the same time, you have to ask, well, who have they been playing lately? They don't have a week 3 schedule matchup like Carolina does with Clemson every year. So, you might be a little more curious about, well, what have they done, to really necessarily get themselves in line. So I really think this is one of those great shrouded in mystery weekends, because I don't think you can honestly say what to expect from either of these squads. South Carolina's been pitching the daylights out of it. Will that carry over when they're not doing it at Founders Park, when they're having to do it in a very, very difficult place to play in Oxford? Will that kind of reliable pitching still be there against that level of competition in a true road environment? And we're not going to know that, obviously, till we get through the weekend. But I'm real curious to see how that is handled by some of those guys that haven't really been in that setting yet.
Appreciate the extra time today. Glad you had a good trip up. Have fun tomorrow night, and we'll talk to you here real soon. Thursday, of course, just to remind you, Thursday afternoon, 3 o'clock airtime Eastern, 3 o'clock Eastern airtime, with the game scheduled to tip around 3:30, officially 25 minutes after the conclusion of Game 1. Derek and Judge Manning on the call. Thanks, man. We'll see you soon.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
That is Derek Scott, D. Scott Gamecocks, to follow along on Twitter. And just to let you know, a couple of things here as we conclude today's drive around the SEC. Again, the men's tournament gets underway tomorrow night. It's a late night affair, too. Now, this is Central Time tip-offs. So, I'm giving you Eastern start times, but 7 o'clock Eastern, Vandy and Arkansas. And then, again, 25 minutes after, it's Missouri and Georgia. So that game is going to tip around 8:30, 9 o'clock Central Time tomorrow night.
Yeah,
that's late. Why so late?
You know why? Because the only way to watch Georgia and Missouri play basketball is when it gets really weird and late and after hours. That could be X-rated, man. That's going to be some ugly basketball. None of that's safe for work, brother. None of that.
What if Missouri finally wins a conference game?
Then they avoid pulling the Vanderbilt. Honestly, if they beat Georgia tomorrow night, I might fire off I'll find the confetti cannon in that arena, and I will fire it off.
And finally, speaking of Missouri, to conclude the drive around the SEC, former Notre Dame and Arizona State quarterback Drew Pine is transferring to Missouri. He visited Como this weekend. It was the only other place he visited, or the only place he visited. He will enroll in the spring. He is going to graduate this May from Notre Dame, which I was telling Elijah earlier. Good for you, son.
That's going to look really good on his LinkedIn profile, which he's going to have to start sprucing up because, buddy, we only have so many years of
he left Notre Dame for Arizona State, but he's going back. He basically just re-enrolled at Notre Dame this spring. and I'm not I'm not trying to be mean here, okay? I'm not. But graduating from Notre Dame probably does look better than graduating from Arizona State, which is, I'm sure, a fine institution. But Notre Dame is like elite academically. It's like Ivy League level elite. So there's that. But he says, just clicked with the coaching staff and is ready to help him out. Does he walk right? Is he going to walk into that job? I don't know what Missouri's quarterbacking situation looks like, to be honest with you.
I think Brady Cook's coming back. I mean, I think you know why he clicked with the coaching staff so well?
Tell me.
They're the same bleeping age, Jay. Of course they're going to be of course they're going to click really well. They're talking about movie quotes from the '90s, and they start talking about like Aerosmith or whatever, and they're like, okay, we like this guy. It's like having a peer in the quarterback room. The guy's been playing college football forever.
Little Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Austin
Party
Powers.
time. Excellent.
Yeah.
And they did that in the office for hours. And they're like, you know what? We could use a guy like you in our quarterback room.
That's the drive around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon Chevy, your hometown Chevy dealer. Stop by the showroom. See why Herndon makes you smile. We will update you one more time on today's spring game poll question. And if you hadn't heard the question yet, I'll ask it on the other side, and you can think about it for yourself as the postgame show continues. Oh, hey, wait, hold on. Do you want to go to 5 Points St. Patty's Day this weekend? I got 2 tickets for you right now. 803-404-6100. 803-404-6100. Lucky caller 3.
There you go.
Pair of tickets. 5 Points St. Patty's. Call us up. Be right back. All right, welcome back in. Final few minutes of the post-game show here on this Tuesday afternoon. Thanks again to Derek Scott for joining us. Shane Beamer joined us earlier. If you missed it, the head coach of the Gamecocks interview will be up on the podcast page. Already up there. Elijah's got that for you. 1075thegame.com. You can get the app at the App Store, the Google Play Store. What if you don't want to play? They have like a Google Work Store.
They have a Google Stop store.
Yeah, I mean,
or a Google Pause store. There's a lot of buttons on a remote.
Elijah will be broadcasting from Nashville for the men's tournament, sponsored by Cool Care Heating and Air. So he'll be leaving just a little bit.
In a matter of minutes.
Staying with family. Mama's cooking.
That's right.
Nice.
Mom's putting a pot roast on.
Nice.
Waiting for me when I get there at like 11 Central.
Well done. ACC tournament is getting underway today. Where are they playing this year? Washington?
I thought it was still in Charlotte. Or Greensboro still.
Hang on, I'm going to try to find out.
It should be in Greensboro every year.
It should be in Greensboro. I completely agree. Of course, they've moved the headquarters out of Greensboro to Charlotte. They've just forsaken Greensboro, North Carolina, which is a fine town.
That's very unfortunate. That building has hosted a lot of really good basketball games.
Yeah.
The Greensboro Coliseum.
And the Grateful Dead.
Wow.
Back in the day.
A lot of buildings have hosted the Grateful Dead.
Yes. Probably more buildings have hosted the Grateful Dead than have hosted the ACC tournament.
Yeah, that's fair.
Carolina Coliseum hosted the Grateful Dead.
And you know what? The Grateful Dead leave a different smell than the ACC tournament does.
It's deodorant.
Yeah, totally.
It's patchouli.
It's arugula.
No, it really is patchouli. And other aromas.
Yeah.
But mostly patchouli.
There's more variants of smells,
Sure.
I would say.
Sometimes you can't really tell the difference between patchouli and some other things anyway. I digress. Poll question on the day. Would you be in favor of college football teams playing a spring exhibition against another school instead of the typical intra-squad scrimmage? A, yes, test yourself. B, no, too many risks. Right now, 77.2% of you say yes. Just 22.8% then are saying no. Again, the best answer so far, I'm kidding a little bit, but only a little bit. Ryan said, yes, play the FCS school at this time and not during the regular season. Power 5 and Group of 5 only for the regular season. Yes. And then again, William maybe actually gave the best answer when he said, give me South Carolina at Hawaii. Allen responded to that then and said, don't need to go to Hawaii, play an ACC team in the Bahamas. All right. I haven't been to Hawaii
That's
yet.
good.
So
We're
selfishly,
getting close.
I want to go to Hawaii. I have been to Exuma, Southern Bahamas. Hot. Went in like July. What was that, August? I forget, July or August. Hot. My man. You're literally that much closer to the sun down there. You know what I'm saying?
The equator.
It's you're below the tropic line at that point. And it's
invisible, but it's real.
It's warm, dude.
Yeah.
It's hot here, but it's a different kind of hot. But it was beautiful. It's beautiful. So, yeah, I hear you, Alan. Bahamas are very nice, especially when you get down past the, touristy stuff and get into, like, the nice, giant swimming pool that is the Caribbean Sea. I'm for this. Shane is for that. We brought this up today, if you're wondering, like, why today? Shane was on with us, and he is in favor of this.
He's an advocate.
And his biggest reason is, I think, a very valid one. It helps you evaluate. It lets you know who you are, who you've got, where you need to improve. Maybe even offers you an opportunity in today's world to make certain of your transfer portal needs for guys that are leaving after the spring. Even though by then, kind of like recruiting, the first signing day, the first signing period now is when you're going to get the bulk of your class. And the transfer portal situation is going to happen before the February signing period. But there are opportunities after spring ball. So, and again, like I say, with all due respect to FCS programs, that's what I say with the guy Ryan that hit us. I'm for those games moving to spring or not being on the regular season schedule. I just don't think they should be there anymore. They're not competitive typically. They're nothing but a glorified scrimmage anyway, in my opinion. And I know I'm not alone.
A lot of them are in the heat of the season to in November, right before. They're clear tune-up games for a rivalry game at the end. And because of that, they're all on the same week.
Well, like I said, man, you talk about, people are saying don't risk it. in the spring for injury, and I just remind Gamecock fans, 2012, the week before the trip to Death Valley, you're playing Wofford at Williams-Brice, and Connor Shaw got hurt. And you don't know then that Dylan's going to have the game of his life. I've told that story or made that point many times. There's no way to know that Dylan was going to go have the game of his life in Clemson. But you were riding the wave that was Connor Shaw. And he got hurt playing against Wofford. Now, again, that's not Wofford's fault. It happens because it's football.
Violent sport.
But would it have been better to have a week off or play somebody? I don't know. I'm just saying. That's what happened. And if you're going to play, at least play them in the first week. Almost mandate it. First 2 weeks, you got to play those games. I don't know. But I'm for this. We'll let this run for a little bit more in tomorrow's program. Get you ready for basketball. Elijah has a lot more for us from Nashville on tomorrow's show, baseball updates, and so much more. Dawn Staley and Brad Muller are next with Carolina Calls. See you tomorrow. And one more note before we get out of here, and that is from our good friends at AAA Heating and Air. For years and years, Roy and Dana Findlay and their crew have been taking care of all of your home's HVAC needs, heat when it's cold and the AC when it's hot. Now, not only are they continuing to do that and offer great service and selection on new systems, but they are providing residential and professional electrical services, including panel upgrades, get you nice, more efficient, more modern lighting installation all around the house, whether it's accent lighting, security lighting. They can do all that for you. Generator installation when the thunderstorms come and the power goes out. You'll still be nice and cool and watching whatever you want to watch. They can repair all those things as well. Check them out online at callAAAtoday.com, or you can call them up at 803-677-1500. AAA Heating and Air, where quality meets commitment and your comfort is their legacy. Tell them Jay Phillips sent you when you call AAA Heating and Air.